Shut up and sit down.
Howdy and salutations, welcome to Broken Table Commentary, a three-man creative debate podcast all about the greatest of fake sports, professional wrestling. Every week, we each bring a different topic to the table. The topics can be ridiculous or serious, opinion or factual, creative or not, whatever we feel like. On commentary, we have our Mark, the debonair diabetic dad, Lenton.
Woo!
Our historian, the Scottish Grumpelstiltskin, Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael, editor of the40p.com, and I'm not grumpy, I've got a feckin' cold.
And our critic, me, Jessel. As always, you can follow us on SoundCloud, YouTube, and Facebook as Broken Table Commentary, or follow us directly at BrokenTableCommentary.com. New episodes are broadcast every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode number 4, Turntable. We got the draft. We got the draft and shake up on our brains, which, for me, just put it on out there, was honestly 3 really great episodes of WWE television. But because of that, we got a few shake up draft related topics today. So how you fellas feeling about all the WWE stuff going on right now?
I'll tell you one thing, we are now in a world where Braun Strowman lifted an ambulance, so I'm happy.
That was great.
Yeah.
I've heard all these, like, I thought I was an internet smart. Like, I thought I was, like, a super critical internet smart. But I am on a couple other wrestling boards, and man, they were just ripping Raw apart. Like, no one can lift an ambulance. That's stupid. I was just like, but it's cool. It's Braun. It's awesome. I don't get it. I guess you guys are a better influence on me than I thought.
Yeah, we got him.
While I might still be critical, I'll never stop being critical. I definitely marked out a lot over the past 3 days. I marked out for the shining fucking stars.
That's pretty bad.
They had a great debut on SmackDown. It was a great debut.
It took me like 11 seconds to realize who it was that was running in on them. I was like, who is that? And then I don't remember who it was. I think Byron was like, that's a Shining Stars. And I was like, oh, that's a Shining Stars.
Byron's doing a great job on SmackDown. He works way better with Todd Phillips than he does with Michael Cole. Todd Phillips doing a great job too. I don't know. I thought all 3 of these, I'm including 205 Live, because 205 Live had the TJ Perkins heel turn, which I predicted in the BTFI. You get no points for it, but I still predicted it.
It didn't happen on 205 Live. It happened on Raw.
It got confirmed on 205 Live.
Oh, what? It was confirmed on Raw. When you beat up the top babyface, that is a heel turn.
Yeah, like Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns beat up the top babyface in the history of the company, The Undertaker, and didn't turn heel. No, you gotta have confirmation.
That's a scheduled wrestling match that is different than an attack after a loss.
If you think about it, Aries has only himself to blame here, though, because they had a match on Raw, and what did he not do? He didn't thumb him in the eye. Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake. I was very happy with TJ Perkins' heel turn, and I did not see it coming. I marked out for that. I was like, I was sitting in the bed next to my wife, and I don't think she was playing a video game or reading a comic book, and I just went, heel turn! The greatest moment in wrestling! And I went on a huge rant about how the heel turn is still the most exciting thing that can happen in wrestling. And I just kept yelling heel turn.
I always like the double turn. It's rarer, and when done better, more interesting, but heel turns are good.
Heel turn!
When was the last double turn? What, Del Rio Ziggler?
Ziggler, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a good one, too.
It was. It was a good heel turn. But yeah, it was 3 great nights of, well, for me, I watched 205 Live this morning, so 3 great days, but 3 episodes of great stuff. I really think, I hate the draft. Let's just be frank. I don't like it. I think it's a really lazy storytelling technique. So to take all of the bad storytelling out of it, and just say, we did all of this while you guys weren't watching, so you can just enjoy yourselves, and then just have surprise after surprise after surprise on Raw and SmackDown was great. It was perfect.
Yep.
I much preferred it this way than the whole random drawing thing that they used to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And they still did the Angle Rollins one. They brought that one out, and they did that one on TV. And having the one didn't bother me because that one was a big deal. But they went through it so fast, and then it was over with. And it was Angle trying to get Rollins over for all his hard work, because the crowd does not seem to care that Rollins defeated Triple H and
Well, that's because
Stephanie.
that match was a dud.
I know, but my point is that I understand why they did that, because they're trying to help out Rollins a little bit to get him a little bit of a boost.
Poor Finn Balor. Once again, day after a debut, he gets another injury that could put him out for a long time. Because Jinder Mahal concussed him.
Oh, so it's a concussion? Okay, I hadn't heard exactly what happened.
Yeah, you can see his dazed face. It was super duper a concussion.
There's a lot of people who want Jinder sacked for that, and I would agree with sacking him on general principle.
Are you not a Jinder fan?
No, I would hinder Jinder's push.
Jinder's doing fine for me. I think he has a good
like
look.
Jinder.
I think they should take this and make it a thing. Make him work stiff. I think he did a great job. Don't let him stiff people in the head again. But, make a point of it. Look, in one hit, he concussed a Universal Champion. What is he going to do to you, Mojo Rawley?
What I like so much about Jinder is that when he's on TV, everyone in my house, granted everyone in my house is my 38-year-old wife, my 14-year-old stepson, my 3-year-old daughter, and my 12-year-old stepdaughter. They're so disgusted by the veins on his body, and they just can't stand him for it. And he automatically gets all this heel heat from everyone in my house at all these different levels of age just because of the way he looks, and that makes me so happy. That just him standing there makes people in my house so upset. Oh, I love it.
It's
Way
great.
to go, Jinder. Way to just look like that and make people so mad. So I'm all about Jinder Mahal. Keep looking like that. Keep having those big snake veins.
He looks like Test in 2007 to me. But besides Jinder, I thought that this was a rare draft in WWE in which SmackDown came out better.
Oh yeah, I was really worried for a second because it really did look like Raw said, one of those working on SmackDown? Yeah, let's take all of that, please. Thank you.
Well, that is what usually happens.
I normally watch stuff. There's so many hours of stuff that I can't sit down and watch all of it. So I normally watch recaps like on YouTube, or I go and I find just different bits of it. So Raw, I was like, that was pretty good, and I watched most of it. But SmackDown was so phenomenally good, pun intended for AJ, that I had to go and watch the whole thing, beginning to end. It was great. Another Match of the Year contender, the Triple Threat. Because Baron Corbin's looking like a beast. Sami Zayn came out looking great, even in a loss, unlike on Raw, where in his losses he always looked like a poop butt.
Poop butt.
The Phenomenal Forearm is my favorite finisher of anyone currently on the roster.
When he almost does the Phenomenal Forearm off the electric chair, but then they fall and he misses it. Oh, that was...
Oh, they don't even fall. He converts it into a roll-up.
Yeah.
So that was a great spot.
Best spot in the match. That was wonderful.
The spot where they kept trading things in the diagonal corners. It was a clothesline. Missed the clothesline. Now we got the guys running through. And then they missed the thing. That was... I've never seen that before. It's so simple. Because a lot of times people try to do more complicated, bigger spots. But you don't need to do that. You just need to tell good stories. And that was really good. I thought everybody looked good. It was great. In fact, the only person I think looks bad in all of this is Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt going to Raw is probably a terrible idea for him.
Yeah, that one seems a little silly, but I'll give it a bit before I can say.
We'll see what happens. This whole shakeup, none of this, clearly, looking at all of our booking a year, none of us could have seen this coming. The US and IC title swapping, so many people swapping sides. We got some. I got
New Day and Charlotte, but I think that's about it.
I got Sammy.
Yeah, I knew a couple of you had Sammy.
I think that's all. I think that's it. Sammy moved, but then they switched the titles as well, so Sammy still... Our Booker T Fantasy Invitationals are going to be very light on points this year because of this shakeup, but that's good. That's fine.
But I think that's more fun, personally. Yeah, the Orton-Eric Rowan thing was probably the low point of all of SmackDown last night.
Isn't it great that the U.S. title was the main event? It opened the show and ended the show. We were just talking about how that's the most prestigious title in the WWE currently, so that's really cool.
Owen, Zayn, and AJ... You've got one half of a new SmackDown 6 there, so...
Don't forget Baron, that gives you 4.
I have a feeling with Baron Corbin, if he continues at his improvement level, in about a year and a half, you're not going to find anyone online who will admit ever having disliked him.
I agree. I'm totally looking forward to the AJ Styles Baron Corbin hair versus hair match. It's gonna happen. With all that said, we all like what we're seeing. Let's go ahead and move into our topics.
1.
Our first topic, I brought up Bray Wyatt for a reason, is mine. Make a new Wyatt family. Because the Wyatt family return on SmackDown was, for lack of a better word, bungled. Now he's been separated from all the members of the Wyatt family except for Braun, who will never be going back, as Bray Wyatt's now on Raw. So, let's make a new Wyatt family. My only rules were you have to pick 3, and that's your new Wyatt family. So I'm excited to hear what you guys say. Let's give Wyatt a new crew, because his gimmick has to have a family to work.
Slightly off topic, but not completely. I'm doing a bit of research, and on the official WWE.com website, the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt House of Horrors match is not listed as a title match. It's just listed as a match between the two in a House of Horrors match. So it may not be a title match. All right, sorry.
That's good.
Friend.
That's good to know. New Wyatt family. I'll go first. It was my topic. Luckily, the 3 people I picked before the shakeup happened, and all of them ended up on Raw. Well, kind of. 2.5 ended up on Raw. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So, a new Wyatt family, I think, first off, let's go ahead and just actually use his family. Let's give Bo Dallas something to do, hook him up with his brother, put them in the tag team scene. So you got Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas together in the Wyatt family. Then you need a big hoss. So I wanted Rhino, because Rhino's been playing the exact same gimmick for so long. I think it'd be refreshing to see this animal come under Bray Wyatt's spell. I think it'd be cool to have him just destroy Heath Slater, like under no volition of his own, kind of like when Bray hypnotized Xavier Woods, and it almost worked. Have it just straight up work on Rhino. That'd be amazing. And then, for the first time, I want a lady. I want a woman. Now, in a perfect world, I would hire Awesome Kong Karma back.
Yeah.
I'd get her back and have her join the Wyatts. That way she's not Sister Abigail. She is just Karma, and you can even have it build up. You can have Bray talking to Randy like, Karma's a bitch, Randy. And then you don't know what's going to happen. And then at the House of Horrors, you have Karma show up and implant buster Randy Orton. Like, that'd be amazing. But if we can't hire Karma, Nia Jax would do the same thing for me. Because Nia's gimmick is not being like most girls. That's not a gimmick. That's just you're a botch machine. That's a big, beautiful but big woman. It'd be great to give her the Wyatt treatment for a while. Really, really let her be different than Alexa, who just moved over, Sasha, who's about to turn. I think it'd be great. So those are my 3. Bo Dallas, Rhino, and Nia Jax, or, if you can, Karma.
I'm definitely down with the Bo Dallas over there. That's a great idea.
I like the idea of women's wrestler in the faction. I did toy with that, but couldn't think of who to use.
Who did you decide to use, Michael?
Well, I'm always very original in this show, as you know.
Sure.
I think this is the one week where I don't get to mention Battle Royals so far.
So far. The first person I could see being a new Wyatt member is actually Bo Dallas. He's down here on my list. I could see it as them starting with Bray trying to reach out to him through his sort of jobbery matches, and Bo doing the whole, oh no, I don't want anything to do with you, but the whole, for example, I could see, if this was around Rumble time, him entering early into the Rumble, but then the Bray stuff happens and he gets eliminated. And it all builds into the fact that he can't escape the clutches of, well, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't call him his brother on screen, but they can heavily allude to there being a link, shall we say. Oh no, they'll totally talk about it so that they can feud with the Hardys. And then the Hardys have to get broken. So then you have the broken Hardys versus the Wyatts, Wyatt and Bo. It's gotta happen.
So they're Bo. Second, I was looking through the divisions and I was thinking what they could really use, because I think it would be mutually beneficial to the division and to the person and to Bray in general, would be to have a Wyatt member in the Cruiserweight division.
That's a good idea. Who'd you pick?
And I was looking through the folk in the Cruiserweight division and I thought, who looks like they could turn into a Wyatt member with just a wee bit of a makeover? And it would really help, because from what I can see, they've got lots of potential in them, but they need to. And I stuck with is it Oni Lorcan?
Oh sure, yeah.
I feel that would be a mutually beneficial for everyone involved in that one.
Especially considering he got booze at his last match when he was supposed to be the babyface.
And finally, because I couldn't come up with women, I decided to go for hench people and decided to give him the Ascension. Every good heel needs people who can get beat up by the faces. 2, it would actually give them something to do. 3, it might give a credible heel tag team to Raw who would desperately need teams in general. So
As sad as it makes me, I can't blame you.
that would be my 3 options.
My idea is Bray to start getting in the head of people that were created by the WWE machine, that have names given to them by the WWE machine, and he wants to cleanse them of their Christian given name in a sense and give them back to who they really are, and that can only be happened through Bray Wyatt. So he goes after Goldust, he becomes Dustin, and he goes after R-Truth, and he goes back to Ron, and he goes after the Big Show, because the Big Show's got to have a last run. Come on, you guys. And he becomes Paul. So he takes those 3 guys that the WWE machine churned out and failed, according to Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt convinces them that WWE failed them, and he makes them part of the Wyatt family as Paul and Ron and Dustin, and gets them all nasty and dirtied up with Bray Wyatt, and he tries to help them reclaim who they are through Bray Wyatt.
I like that angle. Then he takes Bray Wyatt takes 3 finishes at WrestleMania as all of them turn face and then retire.
No.
Why not? That'd be great. Bray Wyatt finally gets his comeuppance from these 3 guys as his work in brainwashing lasts longer and longer.
Nope.
Then at WrestleMania, he gets KO punched, pay dirted, and
the lie detector. Yeah. These guys stay in the Wyatt family forever. That's what I would do. But I think it'd be cool to have the guys that, used to be these big names that WWE created, and they're like nothing now. And the Wyatt goes for them and says he'll bring them back to relevance. So that's my idea.
I like the idea. I like it. Especially Big Show, considering he debuted in the Dungeon of Doom. It'd be fun to see him retire as a Wyatt. It's nice full circle-y.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I like that idea, too. I was pretty happy with that answer. And then we could get that face paint off of old Goldust.
Well, that's the only one that I'm the least interested in. We've seen him do that, and that was bad.
Well, I disagree.
You liked him
in
as
WCW?
Dustin in TNA?
Yeah,
and in WCW?
I liked everything in WCW, though. Nothing was terrible about WCW. Give me the year 2000 WCW any day of the week.
Oh, jeez.
Give me Shane Douglas.
So basically, you both went for storyline reasons for your answers, and I basically went eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
There's nothing wrong with that, because you at least picked one correct, Michael, and that was Bo Dallas.
I mean, that's how they picked the Wyatt family to begin with. They just went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and developmental, and just picked some guys. So
it's true. And hey, look what it did for Braun.
And now he's lifted an ambulance up.
He does.
Now he's lifted up.
He really is a monster, like they're saying. And monsters eat little dogs.
Oh, God.
That's the storyline. The storyline is a monster versus the big dog, and he beat up that big dog, and he's gonna eat him.
Yeah. I see the connection now. Took me a second. Just eating dogs. Oh my goodness.
With that nice, simple round over with, it's time for our second topic.
2.
This is my topic, and this topic is which draft/trade move turned out to be the most disappointing in WWE history. And because I am so intrigued, I would like Michael to go first.
Yeah, Michael's been ramping this one up to us.
Dropping hints all day.
Talking about how, Jessel will never know. I don't know. I can't do Scottish. Oh, laddie. Ach.
Oh, laddie.
All I said was that when Lenny came up with this topic, immediately one trade came to mind in the whole history of them, standing out as the most underwhelming and not so good. And because it happened in the year 2005, I figured you might not have heard of it, because it's basically a bunch of lower carders or mid carders, and it was during your hiatus from
Well, come
wrestling.
on, share it. Spill the beans.
In 2005, what they did for their trade is that instead of going, here's a random draw on the TV, They just said a bunch of stuff happened behind the scenes, and we will randomly show them each week on Raw and SmackDown. So during Raw, for example, they'd be having something, and suddenly John Cena's music hit, and Cena had been traded to Raw. And then right at the end, the last trade was on TV was that Batista had been traded to SmackDown. So they basically reshifted the entire nexus of their shows. However, right at the very end of this, they announced on WWE.com the super mega trade, and it was that there was multiple mid-carders were moving in both directions in a blockbuster trade. Raw got Mark Jindrak, Rene Dupree, Danny Basham, Kenzo Suzuki, Hiroko, and Chavo Guerrero Jr. And SmackDown got Candice Michelle, Sylvan, Simon Dean, Stevie Richards, and William Regal. Epic, don't you think?
I mean, there's at least like 3 of those people I care about.
William Regal.
Chavo did good stuff.
We're going to leave Regal out of this, and Chavo, because they both did well. Regal did really good out of it because he was a SmackDown mainstay for the rest of the decade practically. And then he had his Raw GM, so he did well. Chavo, they were going to do stuff with him, but it got sidetracked by Eddie dying, so there was an unfortunate circumstances to that. But as for the rest of them, Mark Jindrak got released within the week. Danny Basham, Kenzo Suzuki, and Hiroko didn't make a single appearance on Raw. Danny Basham, he went down to Ohio Valley, and then he became one of the Paul Heyman's guards in ECW in 2006 before they got released. Kenzo Suzuki and Hiroko were actually released the same day as Jindrak because it was part of Black Friday when they released 20 people in the one day because they were making the budget cuts so they could re-sign Brock Lesnar in 2005. Only once they made the budget cuts, he turned them down. So they rehired some folk who they released that day, like Charlie Haas got re-signed about 5 months later. But some others, like the Dudley Boys, basically they went on a self-righteous huff and wouldn't come back. And, you know, I can't blame them, to be honest. Rene Dupree, he made 2 Raw appearances. He beat Val Venus in one, and then in the other, he went to a no contest with Eugene, and he was back in Ohio Valley on August the 25th. Candice Michelle, having been drafted to SmackDown in this trade, showed up on Raw when she came back from injury in October. Stevie Richards, his epic SmackDown run led to 1 pay-per-view appearance as the Blue World Order. After the Blue World Order got brought back to stop Blue Meanie suing the company after Bradshaw legit beat him up on pay-per-view at One Night Stand in 2005. And that's the only reference we'll have to how awkward a week this is for anyone remotely who ever liked the Acolytes. Innocent face.
No, it won't. Spoiler.
And that just leaves Simon Dean and Sylvan, who were used on SmackDown as jobbers. Simon Dean was the first victim of Bobby Lashley's undefeated streak. So there you have a mega trade with 10 people, 4 of whom got released within the week before they did anything of note. 3 or 4 of whom never did anything on the shows they got traded to, and 1 person whose career got sidetracked due to unforeseen circumstances, and 1 of the 10 who did anything of note as a result of this mega trade, this blockbuster to end all of WWE.com exclusives. So yes, that stands in my mind as the most underwhelming draft in WWE history.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
That one's so bad, I don't even remember it happening.
Yeah, it was dreadful.
I think I got one that's at least comparable. We're talking the 2011 draft, where if anybody knows what happened that night, you see it opens with John Cena getting drafted to SmackDown. And then you spend Raw with John Cena taking off the red shirt, and he's got his blue shirt on and beating the crap out of all these people. And it's, oh, goodness, and there was so much interest. It was the show that made John Cena. It was such a big deal. And they end the night with John Cena drafted back to Raw. It is the worst trade ever.
That's a bad one.
as bad as trading those 10 people that don't matter is, trading the one guy that does matter twice to further prove that SmackDown is worthless in Vince McMahon's eyes during the worst run of John Cena's Cena-ness, that, for me, is absolutely the most disappointing one. Because it could have been really cool to see Cena go back to SmackDown. It could have been finally... The thing that happened when Cena went to SmackDown this last year, where Cena had re-upping a new breath of air to him, that was really nice, and that could have happened in 2011, but no. This is the John Cena show. John Cena is the most important character. He gets drafted twice. I am shocked that Roman Reigns didn't switch brands 4 times just to make him better than John Cena during this shakeup. I'm not actually shocked by that, by the way. That's hyperbole. So for me, that one is the most disappointing, hands down. Twice in one night, burying an entire show in the process. Ugh. Ugh.
You think what could have been, given that it was only a few years previously they traded Triple H to SmackDown for a whole year, and he had one of his career runs on the show. That's where your scramble matches
I know, it was great.
Oh, well. One of his career runs on SmackDown. You guys aren't going to like my answer.
Oh, is that yours?
Well, for starters, let's just put out that John Cena, that one would have been my answer, but when I was actually watching it, and I'm going to name drop somebody nobody knows, because then I'm going to tag him and say, hey, we talk about you on this podcast. You should listen to it. But I was watching with my little brother and my friends, Benjamin Martin and Reed Clark. And Benjamin Martin actually said after Cena gets drafted to SmackDown, oh, I bet Cena's going to get drafted back to Raw. How much you want to bet? You know, like jokingly. And so we were all like, oh, okay, I bet it's going to happen. So then when it happened, we were less angry and we kind of just laughed it off. So it wasn't too big of a deal. But yes, worst draft choice, disappointing in WWE history is, this is not going to be fun now. Triple H to SmackDown in 2008.
I love the serendipity.
All right, let's run through Triple H basically just killing everybody's momentum and burying everyone on SmackDown for less than a year before he decides he's ready to go over to Raw. All right, so Triple H goes to SmackDown 2008. He beats Edge, and he beats up Vicky Guerrero in that match that has I think it's Alicia Fox, right? Isn't that who Edge's secret lover is during all that? Yeah, okay. Then he goes on to beat the Great Khali at fucking SummerSlam. Yeah, career run right there. Triple H's amazing SummerSlam match with the Great Khali. Then he gets put in the championship scramble against 4 of these wonderful talents on SmackDown, all of who could have benefited from a great title run. He beats them all, of course, in the championship scramble. Triple H. No problem
well,
there.
Hey,
but now we're at the point.
I mean, that match was pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's a good match, but
Jeff Hardy looked good in it. Brian Kendrick
and Jeff Hardy looked great. So hey, let's go off of Jeff Hardy's momentum. But no, instead, let's have Triple H beat Jeff Hardy at the next pay-per-view clean. Okay. Well, now let's go to the next pay-per-view. Well, let's have Triple H beat Jeff Hardy clean at the next pay-per-view. All right, now we're going into Survivor Series, and the match is supposed to be Triple H versus Vladimir Kozlov for the title during Triple H's career run, where he's going to be beating Vladimir Kozlov. But instead, Edge gets named as a surprise entrant. Jeff Hardy has to come out there and accidentally knock out Triple H with a steel chair, just so Triple H can get beat for the title. So Triple H doesn't look bad when he loses the title, of course, because that would be crazy. Then Triple H goes on to, of course, win the belt back at the Elimination Chamber, and then decide, you know what? I think I've beaten everybody on SmackDown. I'm just going to go over to Raw now. I set the rules. Whatever. Fuck the draft. It's been 7 months, so I'm just leaving SmackDown now that I've beaten everyone and made everyone look bad. So he just walks on over to Raw, and he just becomes part of Raw now. And he puts no one over on Raw except for Randy Orton a little bit, who doesn't need it whatsoever. And it was a complete waste of Triple H going to SmackDown. Nothing good came out of it whatsoever. And there it is. There's the worst Most disappointing draft in history.
Again, it's hard to argue with that. That's a good rundown. My only point of comparison of actual watching is that scramble match, which was the worst of the 3 scramble matches until I watched the bash that you told me about, Michael, which is the worst scramble match. That match is bad because the commentary is the utter shit stains.
I'd just like to point out in that scramble match that the only reason he dominates at the end is because he's the last man in it, and he's Triple H, and they've all killed each other for the past 15 minutes. But in general, his run does suffer from the typical WWE thing of setting up a storyline and then not finishing it because they get distracted. Because the whole thing was that in each of the Hardy matches, Jeff Hardy gets that bit closer to winning the belt, but Jeff Hardy's himself, basically, and Triple H manages to eke in a victory. And it was building to Jeff winning the belt off him. But then Edge came back from injury, and they decided what would be really cool instead was to have Edge win the belt yet again, thus destroying 3 months of storyline in one fell swoop. Did think the moment was really cool at the time, but from a narrative perspective, it basically blew everything they'd been trying.
And to defend a little bit, WWE says that wins and losses don't matter. We know that's not true, but they say that, and I remember that other than the scramble match, both of those Triple H Jeff Hardy matches were on the Jeff Hardy DVD set that came out in 2010, because I remember buying it, watching it, and even in losses, Jeff Hardy looked good. So if nothing else, Triple H, while he didn't lose, did make people have good matches, have career highlights, so that's something, a little tiny peg to hang your hat on after some bad stuff. Because the Armageddon match is really good.
Well, Jeff Hardy wins the belt at the end of this year, but he doesn't win it from Triple H. He wins it from Edge. Edge gets the belt from cheating against Triple H just to drop it to Jeff Hardy the next month, just to drop it to Edge the next month at Royal Rumble.
Yeah, it's very Shawn Michaels smelling. With I don't want to lose to Jeff, so I'll transition it out to someone
Everybody
else.
starts dropping the belt, just Triple H doesn't want to be involved with all that kind of stuff because that's going to make him look weak. He needs to go over to Raw to beat up Randy Orton. The SmackDown superstar Triple H needs to go over to Raw to beat up Randy Orton.
It did suffer from magpie-itis with the storylines, and they had built for a year to Jeff winning. And then suddenly they became distracted with the concept of bringing Christian back, and then they changed that to a Matt Jeff feud and having Edge take on Cena because Cena. But yeah, that's WWE.
The more I learn about that period of wrestling that I missed, the more I'm like, oh, so only 2 guys were at the top the whole time?
Yeah.
Except when Batista wasn't injured, and then things were a little interesting. I guess I'll just watch the Batista stuff and ignore the rest of it.
See, when Batista turned heel on Rey Mysterio, he got a standing ovation from us.
With all that said, why don't you guys, audience listeners, we all presented our cases. Let us know, audience interaction. Why not? Let's try that. Tell us which of these 3 you think, because I think we all made some pretty good points.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the third topico.
3.
Oh yes. I was thinking that we are so often smug about being right about things. For example, Sid being great. At the time I was very smug about predicting exactly how William Regal would win a brass knuckles in a pole match against Edge in 2002. I had all my friends over, but we won't go into that. But sometimes we have to eat humble pie and admit that we were entirely wrong about someone or something. So I wanted to know 3 times in which your immediate or long-held opinions about a wrestler turned out to be, you had to admit you were wrong, whether they were actually better than you'd claimed, or they were actually dreadful and you've been bigging up a flop for ages. So I'll go first, and because I'm such a great self-deprecator who's not grumpy, sweetness and light, I've gone for 2, which I was wrong in terms of bigging up somebody who didn't deserve to be, and then I will end with the reverse to end on a happier note, shall we say. So the first one is Mr. Kennedy, who when I first saw him I thought he was going to be a star, and I can pinpoint exactly the moment I kind of realised he wasn't, which was when he got suspended for the drug bust in 2007, which came not that long after he made an interview, unsanctioned, shall we point out, about steroids in wrestling and how it used to be a thing but it isn't anymore. So he basically outed himself as a major hypocrite, and he ruined his main event push in the process. When he came back from it, he was under a far bigger spotlight, as you can imagine, and he got put into a feud with Shawn Michaels, in which he had some of the worst matches of Shawn Michaels' comeback.
And then he injures Orton, right?
Yes, he also managed to injure himself a fair bit. He's a very sloppy wrestler.
Sounds like a swagger to me.
Back in 2007, he had a really good title match with Batista, and people were like, "My God, he's carried Batista to this match." When the history of both since suggests that that's a bit wrong way around, shall we say?
Yeah.
And then he was in TNA and wasn't very good there. So yeah, I was wrong. He wasn't a main eventer waiting to happen.
I mean, the TNA theme song's really good. I like his entrance music.
I liked his entrance music in the WWE too, but that didn't make him a main eventer.
And he had one good match with Kurt Angle, the cage match.
Yeah, but if you had a bad match with Kurt Angle, that's an even worse thing than not a good match.
That was in 2010, I think, because that was right when I came back, and everyone was talking about it.
I don't think I've seen this cage match.
Yeah, I think it's the only time that Kurt Angle ever hit someone with the moonsault, because he moonsaulted off the top of the cage
and he didn't miss.
Kennedy.
Nice.
Was he? No, he's Anderson at that point. But yeah. I don't remember if the match is good. I just remember we all talked about it on the forum a lot. Because that was right when I was coming back. Because I had completely missed. I 100% missed the career of Mr. Kennedy. So I missed it.
You have to say it twice.
Oh, does he say it twice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, there you go. See, I missed it. I missed it the second time.
The best thing to do is basically, if you're that desperate, you can watch that Batista title match and then think of how many better matches Batista had.
Yeah, see, my only context for him is I saw him in TNA, and I kind of liked him in TNA. Kind of. He never quite got to the I like him, but I kind of liked him. Because they were trying to do the Stone Cold thing with him in TNA, make him be a Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett style guy, and he kind of pulled it off. Kind of.
I like the wrestling is real, people are fake thing Kennedy did in TNA. That was a fun little slogan he was throwing around.
Who's your second boy, Michael?
Well, it's a tag team. I'm still a bit sad about it because one of the guys in it I really marked the hell out for as a kid because I thought he looked awesome, and then reality hit me when he became older and went to WWE for a cup of tea. And it's a tag team who I'm pretty sure Jessel will remember well from WCW called Chronic.
Yeah, Chronic!
Oh, poor Chronic.
I love Chronic.
And I thought they were amazing when I saw them at the time. And then they showed up in the WWE during the invasion. Basically, Vince didn't want to sign them, but Taker went to bat for them because he's old buddies. He was old buddies with both of them from way back. And then they showed up completely, out of condition and had possibly Undertaker's worst ever match. Yeah, and then they got offered to go down and work on their ring rust, and they sodded off instead, and then Crush died. But then when this happened, I went back to look at their matches because I taped a lot of WCW 2000 because it was on one of the more accessible channels at the time. And I realised that all these Chronic matches that I'd been saying were really cool were actually kind of on the same level as So I've never been more... I have actually been more disappointed. Mr. Perfect died. But that was a low point in my early wrestling fandom.
We might be able to make a bingo card for you, Michael. Battle Royal, 8-man matches, Mr. Perfect.
And it was sad because as a younger fan, I was such an Adam Bomb mark because I thought Adam Bomb was amazing. And actually, for a big man, who wasn't pushed, he was all right. But my God, when he had that WCW run in Chronic, everything went to body pod. So sadly, Chronic are my number 2 on that one. But let's not lounge in the land of depression and about people we thought would be great and turned out a bit shit. Because, vice versa can happen. There was a wrestler who he actually debuted in WWE TV in 2005, but his gimmick was ended very quickly due to Eddie Guerrero dying. Then he had another gimmick which ended because it had a finite run. So nobody was sure if he'd ever come back, and in 2008 he debuted with a really stupid gimmick where he'd walk around backstage shaking people's hands. And through 2009, he started having matches on pay-per-view, and everyone on Raja forums basically jumped, going, "This guy's great, he's amazing. Oh, by the way, Michael, doesn't he look like Mr. Perfect?" "No, he doesn't." "Hey, he's the modern Mr. Perfect." I hate this man. And everyone would be pointing out what great matches he's having. I was going, they're all the same. I'm not into this. And they kept pushing him. And he kept winning the IC title, and every time they got the IC title off him, he won it again. And then every time I go, "Oh, thank God, we're having the Royal Rumble," and he's not been announced for it. Who'd appear as a surprise person? He'd be in every damn Royal Rumble match without being announced. And so I really, really, really hated Dolph Ziggler for years and years and years. And then in 2012-13, when he had his Money in the Bank run, and he was basically, he's having multiple matches a night because it was the start of the show-off thing. He was just having so many good matches that, I was being slowly going, "Okay, that was a good match, but I still don't like you. Okay, okay, you've had 3 good matches in 1 hour, but, I've got to stick to my guns here." But, he was doing really good stuff, and the whole him and Big E and AJ partnership, Team Rocket, that was so entertaining that I was starting to, and by the time he won the belt on that Raw and he wasn't Jack Swagger, I had to concede to our third man here that yes, Dolph Ziggler was all right. And then a few months later, he had my match of the year 2013. That match with Alberto Del Rio. Del Rio goes in as a face and comes out as a heel, and vice versa for Ziggler, and he wins the title by knockout, and it is an amazing match. And at the end of it, I just turned to the folk who were watching it and went, "Okay, I concede it. Ziggler's great." And yeah, it took me ages, mostly because I'm a contrarian Scottish sod, and anyone ever wanted to get a rise out of me for years, they just go, "Hey, isn't that Mr. Perfect's son?" But yeah, I came round to it that Ziggler's pretty good in the end.
I didn't know that was your match of the year that year, 2013. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and given I don't like Del Rio either, that really tells you something.
That tells you a lot, yeah. It was a good match. It was probably Del Rio's best match. Fucking Swagger. He injured him.
He is trash. Don't get me wrong.
Swagger. Swagger will not be on my list. I hated him, and I hate him the same amount.
He was on my list of guys I loved that I now hate, but I'm not going to present that list except for that little tidbit right there.
I'm gonna go ahead and suggest that I go next because my last one is very, 1, personal, 2, very negative and critical, and 3, probably not the best way we should end this podcast. So if you don't mind, Lenny, I'd like to go next.
No, go ahead.
All right. I am very critical, if you can't tell. On top of that, I feel like I'm rarely wrong. So this... That's a little hyperbole again. But this list actually was hard because I've always been, even when I was getting back into it as a teenager, I've always preferred ring generals and ring workers over other guys. This has always been my favorite. Dean Malenko and Jericho and Eddie Guerrero and Benoit and DDP. They've always been my favorites. So this list was really hard for me because I I don't really mark out very much. And when I do mark out, I tend to mark out for guys who then prove themselves to be good, like Neville. I'm still marking out for Neville, and he's proving himself to be really good. So this list was hard for me, because I didn't want to be completely negative. Because I can tend to be very negative. So I made sure I found one positive. So for me, my list of 3... honorable mention is Ezekiel Jackson, because his run in Lucha Underground as Big Rick turned me around. I thought that worked really well. He was only in one season, so he didn't do much, and it wasn't a very large change because I didn't hate Ezekiel Jackson. I just rolled my eyes at him, and then Big Rick was like, "Oh, okay, that worked."
He learned a second move.
It's true. And his face turn worked when they blinded him and he wrestled in the eye patch. Like, Ezekiel Jackson's an honorable mention. But beyond that, my 3 are in the in order of how much disparity there is between my original opinion and what I think currently. So, first one I gotta talk about is Kevin Nash. Because, man, I distinctly remember how much I loved Kevin Nash. I thought he looked cool, talked cool, and was cool. I remember getting into huge trouble on a youth trip for church, going to a bowling alley, not knowing what the words meant, and naming myself Big Sexy. So my name at this church youth trip was Big Sexy, and I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know what that actually implied. I was just like, Kevin Nash is Big Sexy. That means cool. But man, the older I get and the more I watch him and the more I learn, his politics are just awful. The more matches I watching the WrestleMania matches with him, I kept going, but didn't he have a good match with Undertaker? No, he did not. But didn't he have a good match with Sid? No, he didn't. Didn't he have a good match with Shawn Michaels? It was fine. Just I used to think the Jackknife Powerbomb was the best powerbomb. It's not. He almost injures everybody with it. It is the laziest powerbomb. Just as I get older, it gets worse and worse. And then you learn about his politicking and his contract that he and Scott Hall signed that ultimately screwed over WCW with their, if anybody made more than us, we had to make at least $1 more than them every time. That kind of thing. You hear about all the click maneuvering and just... Looking back, I can't stand watching him any longer. From an in-ring perspective, all his backstage stuff, him taking the idea of the NWO being a cool heel and never letting it go, so he can never get over. He never let it go, so he always had to be a cool guy heel, which isn't a heel. That means you don't get... The only good thing I can say going back, and this is probably because I am a Sid mark, is because him and Sid feuding before Russo took the title off of Sid and his rebranding of everybody. Nash and Sid's little feud on Nitro with Nash as commissioner and Sid as champ, that worked out really well because the fans were behind Sid and Nash was detestable. He wasn't being a cool heel. But that's the only good thing I have to say about Nash. And that makes me really sad because as a kid I really did love Kevin Nash. I marked out for him. So he's my first boy.
Everything you say there makes complete sense, and yet I still like Kevin Nash.
I mean, I understand it. I get it. I marked out when Big Daddy Cool came out on the Rumble because, that's what marking out is for. But
yeah,
give him a match, that sledgehammer ladder match.
Oh God,
him taking over that CM Punk run, and
the only Nash matches that I ever remember or rewatch is his trilogy with Bret Hart, basically. The rest, he's Sid. He's a big guy with charisma, although I prefer Sid.
So, like I said, I don't want to be all negative. So my second one actually is positive, and that's on Drew McIntyre / Galloway.
Hey!
I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand the Chosen One gimmick. I couldn't stand how often he was in the IC title. This was right when I came back to the WWE, and he was shoved down my throat as this is the next guy. He had the worst, most boring entrance music. His matches were all the same. The Future Shock DDT was a worse version of the same one Mick Foley used to win matches. It just, I didn't like anything about him. Then he left the company, and I didn't have to think about him. But you know what? Over the past couple years, every now and again I heard, oh, he did this in TNA. Oh, interesting. Oh, he's doing this on the indies. Oh, I'll finally give him a watch. And I mentioned this match before, but What actually turned me around was the WCPW match with him and Will Ospreay. That match is another match of the year contender for me, and it is free online right now. It is probably my number 2 match of the year, because holy crap, that match is amazing. Galloway does the thing that Batista did when he was best at being a babyface. He was this monster babyface that all the heels had to be crafty to try to get around, and it made the heels look smart instead of looking stupid, and it makes the matches interesting and incredible. Galloway, he worked out, and he stopped shaving, so now he looks like a big Scottish Yeti monster. I'm legitimately excited to see him wrestle after that match. And I went back and I watched some stuff in TNA when he was a Grand Slam champion, or what is it called? Grand Master champion? Master Grand King Mountain champion? TNA has stupid titles.
They've got a bunch of titles, so I'm not sure which one.
But he actually had good matches. I was like, whoa, is this the same guy?
He did some good stuff.
And now with him signed to NXT for a 1-year deal, it's like, I'm really excited to see him. So while technically this isn't as large of a gap for me as Kevin Nash, this is only upside. Kevin Nash can never get any worse for me. He's never going to wrestle again. He's in the Hall of Fame. Kevin Nash is done. Galloway has a whole career still, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
So he's got to be my second guy, and I'm shocked because I really hated him. I couldn't stand him. Him and Cody Rhodes as a tag team for no reason, just a random, they're together because they're both heels, which just is just because they had nothing to do with either of them. And then they held the belts and never they never defended it. But yeah, I'm on the Galloway train. I'm actually sad that he's going back to being McIntyre. I wish he was still Drew Galloway, because deep inside, I'm a little bit worried that the problem is calling him McIntyre.
It's not a very tough sounding name.
He doesn't have very tough entrance music, so it makes sense. Hopefully he'll have new entrance music too.
Which music are they going with?
He hasn't debuted yet, so they only showed him in the crowd, so we don't know.
The NXT spoilers say it's new music.
That's good.
New music? Okay.
Good. Alright, now this is going to be the not fun one. I had to write this one out because it is a lot of things to say. My largest disparity, my time when my opinion was wrong the most, is with JBL. When SmackDown came on, I loved the Acolytes. I thought they were awesome. This hard-hitting, cool tag team that didn't have to win belts to be cool. I loved when they switched to the APA, which was an amazing gimmick. I loved seeing them care about the main events on SmackDown, so you'd have them in their poker table room playing poker with people. You had great stories. They worked well together. And JBL's Clothesline from Hell was super good, even though it's a lariat. It was still a great move. But then he goes to his singles route. And I left. I was done. I didn't watch during that period. And when I come back, he's gone. So I'm like, I didn't have anything. I had these wonderful thoughts of JBL being this cool Bradshaw guy that I liked in the APA. But as I start to look backwards, almost every match I see him in as a single guy was bad. It just wasn't very good. And then his actual singles gimmick of just being the rich Texas millionaire was dull. And then when he gets on commentary, it's even worse, because all he does is bury talent for fun or make fun of the people he's on commentary with. He doesn't get anyone over. It's the opposite of Bobby the Brain Heenan's great heel commentary, where the only gaffe Heenan ever had was accidentally spoiling that Hogan was going to be the third man in the NWO, and even then that was at least in character for him. Heenan would get everyone over as a heel commentator, and JBL got no one over, and continues to get no one over. The more I learn about JBL's backstage nonsense, all the hazing, all of the bullying, Miz being kicked out of the locker room for a simple, silly gaffe for 6 months or something like that, the more I hear his commentary, the more of his solo matches I watch. I just wish he would climb a mountain and stay up there for forever. Then you add all the stuff that's going on right now with Mauro Ranallo. I don't care what your personal opinions are with Mauro Ranallo, if you think he's good or bad on commentary. I thought he was great. I think he's a great commentator. His CWC stuff is awesome. I thought he was a great voice of SmackDown. I thought he did a great job on 205 Live. He seemed to really care. He put his whole essence into it. And while he was silly, tope suicida, mamma mia, it didn't matter because I thought he cared. He brought emotion and caring, which Cole doesn't do. He fakes his emotions, and it was really nice to see. I think Todd Phillips is doing a good job, to be fair. All this stuff with Morrow is coming out that he's been being bullied by JBL on commentary, and it was most explicit when during a episode of SmackDown, he just wasn't there. And that whole night, JBL buries him on commentary, making fun. Oh, you should be able to be here if you can. And in interviews, it's like, oh, everyone else made it in the storm. And then you find out that it's because Morrow is suffering from bipolar disorder and the bullying and everything. Literally, that just made him have a mental break. He was bullied so hard by JBL that he had a mental breakdown. I've been there. I suffer from mental problems. I suffer from depression and ADHD and formerly a bunch of other things. I have had people ruin activities I love by bullying and passive aggressiveness, laying it on and on and on until I had a mental break that took me out of some of my favorite things for months. And that sucks, and that is not fair. And it's really just an asshole thing to do. And it gets even worse as more and more stories come out of the woodworks from other guys who are now confirming that JBL is this terrible person, that he is hazing people, stealing passports when you're out of country for a haze, beating the shit out of people, working stiff just to prove a point, kicking people out of the locker room just because, thinking himself to be this enforcer of the rules. It reminds me of Bill DeMott training in NXT, where, yeah, he trained guys well in wrestling, but he did it in, like, terrible homophobic ways that humiliating the guys, and finally somebody said something about it, and it shook up everything in NXT, and we got Jason Albert now running things, and he's doing awesome. But JBL is still here, still getting a paycheck, still considered to be great. And so many people are coming out and pointing out that this is unacceptable and this is still happening. I hate John Bradshaw Layfield for this. I hate that the WWE would let this continue to happen, even though Be a Star and anti-bullying, but they're still keeping him on the payroll. They are still supporting him for all of this. I used to really like him, and he has easily become one of the few guys I can't watch any longer. And it makes me vehemently, uncontrollably angry. And that is the largest disparity, on my opinion, from going to I liked him to wishing death, essentially, on him. I wish he would just disappear. That's not very fun opinion. I don't really care, because it's true. And the more people come out of the woodworks, the more people say the truth of what's going on with JBL. Maybe finally the WWE will be forced to do something. But it probably won't, because he's a made man in that company. And that's even worse to me. So,
when did this passport story come out? I mean, I know I've heard it, but I feel last week. Okay.
Yeah. Johnny Mundo confirmed it.
Yeah, I know. I remember who, but I just couldn't remember. It's still pretty new.
Yeah, it is. It is. A lot of guys are still anonymously confirming all these things about JBL, and some guys aren't. Miz confirmed everything about JBL a couple years ago, but that didn't matter. Morrison Mundo just confirmed it. I think Josh Matthews, he's still confirming these things. It's fun. As much as I don't actually find it funny, the funniest, quote unquote, thing that's going on now is that JBL on Twitter is blocking anyone who wishes Morrow well wishes. If you say on a tweet and you follow JBL or he follows you, you say, "Man, Morrow, I hope you're doing better," he will block you. He will block you for just wishing a man who had a mental breakdown from a legitimate disease. It makes me want to cry how angry I am.
I'd just like to point that, given I'm on record in previous episodes of this as being an Acolytes fan, I can't pretend that the whole hazing thing is new to me because it's been out there in the public domain for years, and essentially what I have done, not just them in general, but a whole lot of wrestlers, is take the art and kind of try and forget about the real life person as much as possible. But not only can I not condone any of the horrific stuff that's come out new in the last week, but it's made me feel a lot less about him, shall we say.
So yeah, that's why I didn't want to go last. Because that's not how I want to end this. This is supposed to be a fun podcast, but it's in... we have, 30-something people listening to us weekly right now, and maybe this episode will, reach hundreds, thousands if we continue to do well in the future, and it's important that we talk about this thing, and hopefully something good will come from it. But I want to hear what Lenny has.
Yeah.
Right now, I need that positive, and I appreciate that.
With the whole Bill DeMott thing, it's important to remember that he did get what was coming to him, but it didn't all happen within like a week.
No, it took about, half a year for all of it to finally come out?
Because, there's so much stuff that goes into running business and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, I believe JBL will be gone before too long, but definitely good to spread the word. Keep talking about it. People are chanting things at SmackDown and holding up signs that are getting confiscated and stuff. I don't think it'll be long that he'll stay around, but these things do take.
One of my favorite things about it all is there's one of the What Culture guys, King Ross. He has a running joke making fun of JBL. John O'Clock. Oh, it's John O'Clock, motherfucker. It's really funny and really good. And in this last episode, he refused to make the joke because he just wasn't going to even lightly support it. And that was damning, and that was really cool to me. And I appreciated that as a fan of them. Anyway, sorry to hijack you.
I was going to say, the damning thing about Bill DeMott is people forget he actually got fired twice for it, because that's why he got released in 2007, apparently. And then they brought him back again.
Well, that's a bad sign.
It is.
Lenny, cheer us up here.
Well, JBL's not good at anything right now, so hopefully they won't let him go and bring him back.
So what are your boys, Lenny?
All right. So me being positive, there is nobody really. One of the people on here is, but really, there's nobody on the current roster who, when they debuted anytime recently, I really didn't like. I'm pretty happy with the current way of WWE doing things, and if I'm not, I'm usually like, give it time, it'll probably grow on me, and then it does, and I'm a happy guy. So most of my guys are guys that aren't wrestlers anymore, but everybody here is someone that I did not like, and then I grew to like. And I'm going to go on my list with the least popular to the most popular. So first on my list, and this is someone who is active, the only one that is active, is Brian Kendrick. When Brian Kendrick first came around as Spanky, and he was doing his basically just cut a promo and get beat up by the big guy and rap with John Cena and get beat up. I think he did a couple of actual matches, but I hated him right off the bat because he was just a trash throwaway character, but I didn't think anything of it. But then I really, really, really didn't like him with Paul London. I really didn't like that tag team one bit. I didn't think there was anything special about them. It was basically Spanky, but he ran faster. That's all I saw. That's all I saw Brian Kendrick and Paul London as.
The only thing I've ever seen the two of them do is Paul London get severely hurt at the 2008 Royal Rumble.
2005.
It's amazing. 2005 Rumble, whatever it was great.
Yeah, Paul London didn't bother me as much, but Brian Kendrick was just, his acting was cheesy. The theme was lame. They wore those weird dramatic masks. And this was during a time where there was actually a okay cruiserweight division, but Brian Kendrick was he was so boring, and I didn't like him so much. And they were longest reigning tag team champions for a while there. I think they set a record. Maybe it may have just been for SmackDown or something. I don't remember. Michael probably knows. They set some kind of tag team record. So they were on TV all the time, and I could not stand Brian Kendrick. So then they repackage him as the Brian Kendrick, and they give him, which is my favorite kind of wrestler in the world, a big, muscular black man to walk around with him. And that is just his entrance alone when he walked out with the big old shirt, and he was moving his arms around, and he had the big black guy. I was like, you know what? I don't even care how he's about to wrestle. I already like him again. But then when he gets in there and he's already changed up his moveset, he slowed it down. He made the moves. He made it seem like he was thinking a whole lot more before he did everything. And from there up, the Brian Kendrick just became, he's one of my favorites now. It was absolute night and day, like a completely different person from what he was at the beginning. So Brian Kendrick, number 1 on my list.
That's quite funny because me and Mandy, we started dating at that point. We were big marks for Lundrick, the tag team.
Lundrick.
Yeah, that was their online name at the time because that's when London, Kendrick, Lundrick. But in general, because they had some really good matches with Eminem. They had some really good Styles Clash matches with Regal and Dave Taylor, who had a run in WWE at that point, in a tag team with William Regal. And then it all kind of went about to pot when Jason Domino arrived because Sim Snuka was a dreadful wrestler. Kendrick, he's really somebody who'd screwed up his career with drugs, really. They both are, but Kendrick more so because I think they had more faith in him.
Next on my list, which is semi-similar in the sense of a person of a tag team, I really, really hated Christian when I first started watching the WWE. I started watching right at the cusp of Christian, Edge, Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys, and I thought the Dudley Boys were awesome, and I thought the Hardy Boys were awesome, and I thought Edge was awesome, and I thought, why the hell is Christian here? He looked really goofy, and his moveset was easily the most boring out of everybody's. This is what I was thinking at the time, obviously. His hair was all goofy, his promos were goofy. I didn't like any of that for the benefit of those with flash photography thing. I didn't like the goofy stuff with Kurt Angle. Christian was too goofy. He didn't know how to, he was a bad actor, didn't like any of it. Didn't know how to draw it back. He was always the weak link of any tag team he was part of. He never did anything for me whatsoever. And he was always involved with other wrestlers that I liked, so I couldn't just avoid him. So I always had to watch Christian. And I always could not stand Christian. And until WrestleMania 20 came around, and we got Christian doing the heel turn with Jericho and the Trish Stratus thing, and then he took off and got Tyson Tomko and started getting multiple times better, and then I started liking him a whole lot better, and I always liked him and loved him ever since. So Christian is my next one on my list.
That's funny. See, for that tag team triad, the Hardy Boys were always my lowest. Edge and Christian were my favorite.
Why is that?
Oh, I loved all those things that you hated. I loved. I did. I remember explicitly finding a Angel Fire website that went through all of the things that reek of awesomeness that they said, and using as many of them as I could in my high school conversation. I loved everything that they did. I loved ENC. I loved them with Rhino. I loved them with Angle. Yeah, this is very interesting.
And it felt cool when Edge was saying it. Like, I felt like, oh, Edge is a bro, and he's saying it, and it's kind of funny because, yeah, it sounds like something that some guy would say when Christian is saying it. It felt like a rejected clown.
Christian's first solo run with his amazing Christian.
Oh, terrible.
Last you're on your
hated it. Because even in his solo run, when he was doing that, he was still basically being a tag team partner of Chris Jericho the whole time. And Chris Jericho was way better.
I won't argue with that. Jericho is definitely better than Christian.
What I really liked about Edge, because the time I decided I liked Edge and Christian was the night on Raw they were doing guest commentary, and King's like, well, hey guys, and JR's like, well, what are you doing here? And Christian went, well, actually we're here because the Hardys are having a title match and we're going to do what's known in the business as a run-in and cost them the match. Lawler laughs and goes, well, what do you think of that, JR? And JR was, I'm stunned by their honesty.
That's pretty funny. I like that.
I love genre savviness in these things, but I've always liked Christian, and it's a stupid reason, I know, but basically he's always reminded me of one of my oldest friends who used to watch wrestling with me all the time.
Well, I didn't even think about that.
I think there's a chance he listens to this, so hi. But he Christian has always essentially been our image of what he'd be like if he went into wrestling, and I've always really wanted the best for Christian out of that, because that's why. And I've never been cool enough to be Edge in our old friendship, but yeah, he was definitely Christian.
That's very funny. All right, my last one. This guy I started checking out during WCW, because WCW would talk about, oh, WWF sucks, don't watch WWF, WWF's a piece of shit. So of course I'd have to turn on WWF to see how shitty they were. And his name was Shawn Michaels, and oh my god, he was this douchey little brat boy who overacted every single thing that happened to him, made every single match seem like it was about him and himself. And that was just around the time where I started getting the internet, so I was able to know that he was kind of a douchebag in real life. I didn't get pay-per-view, so I probably missed out on some of his actual good matches. I could just pick up the little Monday Night Raws here and there, but he didn't seem like he was playing a douchey DX character. He seemed like he was just a gigantic asshole. I could not stand Shawn Michaels. And this probably went over for a year. I don't know for how long. Probably to 98. It was before Austin got his big, whatever you call it. But I couldn't stand Shawn Michaels. There's nothing I liked about him. I didn't like his stupid heart pants. I didn't like him shaking his penis at everything. I didn't like the DX stuff. And Triple H, I didn't mind. I thought Triple H seemed like a tough guy who did the DX stuff. He was cool. But Shawn Michaels was just this bratty, disgusting guy. He reminded me of every bully that I had ever run into that ever tried to beat me up, and I hated his guts. Well, then WCW gets bought out. I start watching WWE, and then Shawn Michaels makes his return, and he wants to wrestle again. And he's this humble Christian guy who just wants a shot at the belt again, and Triple H betrays him and puts a sledgehammer into his back in the parking lot, and he goes into the first Elimination Chamber match and wrestles with blue jeans and his cowboy boots on, and goes on to have that great match against Chris Jericho, and he's got this completely different personality than I remembered from like 5 years ago, and he seems like my dad. So he went from being this horrible bully douchebag guy that my older brother would hang out with to a couple years later, and now he's like my dad or like my pastor or youth minister, and I fell in love with him, and I was like, okay, Shawn Michaels is awesome. So Shawn Michaels is my last one of someone who went from someone I hated to somebody I love.
I always hated Shawn to start off because I'm a Hart family mark, so it comes with the territory.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I can't remember when I considered I liked him to make any great anecdote about it. Although I do like his 90s stuff more now that I realise, and he has confessed to this, that it is basically Mr. Perfect cosplaying stuff. Because if you watch how he sells everything, it's basically it is him copying what Mr. Perfect was doing in the late 80s. So that gives an added thrill to that. Although, you know, if I had to choose the Mr. Perfect fan run or the Grizzled Veteran run, the Grizzled Veteran run's much better.
Note to all potential wrestlers: if you want Michael to like you, just state in an interview that it's based off of Mr. Perfect. Anything you're doing, that'll turn him around. Period.
I can't wait. I can't wait to listen to this and count how many times Mr. Perfect is mentioned. It's got to be a dozen.
But guilty as charged.
Well, there you go. That covers our fourth wonderful episode, Turntable. I hope you guys all enjoyed. I hope you all were enlightened. And I hope everybody had a great time. I know I did, except for that point where, you know, that was really sad and hard for me to talk about. But
you did it, and it was good.
You did.
Yeah. But beyond that,
and we agree.
We're good. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Goodbye, fam.
Fam.